The world of fame is not made of gold. It is made of fragile glass that shines in the spotlight yet shatters in a single breath. Every smile, every gesture, every word of celebrity is captured by millions of eyes and judged by millions of hearts. Fame gives glory, yet it also carries loneliness and silence. So deep it can crush the soul. When the cheers fade away in this story, three names stand at the center of the storm. Megyn Kelly, the fearless voice of media, sharp, unyielding, a fighter with words that cut like steel. Perez Hilton, the gossip king, who built an empire out of secrets and scandals, who carried both hatred and fascination in equal measure. And Blake Lively, the radiant actress, who symbolized elegance, beauty, and the dream of a perfect family far away from Hollywood's darkest corners. But when their worlds collided, it was not glamour that rose from the ashes. It was heartbreak, humiliation, and a shock that left the public breathless. What really happened when Megyn Kelly unleashed her fury? When Perez Hilton rose from the ashes to claim victory, and when Blake Lively faced the most unthinkable moment of her career, and perhaps of her life. This is not gossip. It is a story of pride and pain, of voices that refuse silence, of wounds that words alone could never heal. Stay with us chapter by chapter as we open the pages of a tale that no one was prepared to witness, a tale that reveals a heavy price of fame. Megyn Kelly was no stranger to conflict. Her career was built on fire and confrontation. She had stared into the eyes of powerful figures and asked the questions no one else dared to ask. But the night she lashed out was different. Her voice shook not with anger alone, but with exhaustion and with raw humanity that she rarely allowed the cameras to see. It was no longer just the anchor speaking. It was a woman breaking through the armor of professionalism to cry out against a culture that thrived on cruelty. The audience watched stunned. Some saw her as brave, others saw her as broken. Her words echoed like thunder across television and social media. She said gossip destroyed lives. She said people clapped while families crumbled. She said the world was losing its soul by turning suffering into entertainment. Every word cut deep in the last, and every word carried the weight of someone who had seen too much. Perez Hilton did not cower. For him, fire was familiar. It was the very element that had kept him alive in a world that tried to erase him. He answered with the boldness of a man who had been hated yet had never vanished. He said gossip was not the disease, but the mirror. He said he gave people the stories they secretly demanded. And in a shocking twist, the world listened. Younger audiences called him honest. They said he was real, while polished anchors were only playing roles in their eyes. Perez Hilton was not falling. He was rising for the first time in years. Perez Hilton was not just a name of controversy. He was a name of power. Again, his traffic soared. His name trended. His voice was heard on podcasts, on talk shows, on every platform that thrived on noise. The man who once seemed finished was suddenly standing tall in victory. And in the shadows of the storm stood Blake Lively. She had never been part of this war. Her dream was simple: to work, to love, to live without scandal. But the storm does not ask for permission. It consumes everything in its path. Her face appeared in headlines, her name whispered in rumors. She never asked for. Her silence became a weapon against her. Perez Hilton used her as an example, saying even the purest image hides secrets. He said no life was untouchable, no story was beyond scandal. He revealed nothing, yet his words alone were enough to spark fire. And suddenly Blake Lively was trending, not for her work, not for her love, not for her family, but for suspicion alone. Fans cried out in defense, yet others doubted. Strangers argued about her life as if it belonged to them. Talk shows debated her dignity. Comment sections tore her image apart. Her world, once built on grace and stability, felt fragile as glass ready to break. With one more headline for Blake, the pain was unbearable. She believed that staying true would protect her. She believed that silence was strength, but silence was twisted into mystery, and dignity was turned into doubt. Her privacy was gone. Her peace was gone. Her name was no longer hers to hold. And what made it cruel was a contrast. While Perez Hilton laughed in victory, while Megyn Kelly burned in public debate, Blake Lively stood in silence. Her fall was not chosen. It was stolen from her. Her humiliation was not the result of scandal, but the price of living in a world where gossip holds more power than truth. This was the unthinkable reality. She never imagined it was heartbreak. It was humiliation. And it was the beginning of a storm that would test not just her career, but her very spirit. Fame is not always light. It is also shadow. It gives smiles, yet it also takes away peace. It brings applause, yet it also carries judgment that never ends. Megyn Kelly stood strong and showed the world that words can be weapons, but they can also be shields. She reminded everyone that media is not only about headlines, it is about humanity too. Her outburst was not weakness. It was truth breaking through walls. Perez Hilton stood unshaken and proved that even the most hated figures can rise again. He claimed victory in a world that once turned its back on him. He showed that gossip is not only his survival, it is his empire. But every empire built on pain carries cracks that will one day return. And Blake Lively stood silent Yet her silence spoke louder than their words or story. It was not about scandal, it was about fame. Is a strange and powerful thing. It shines like fire. It draws people close. It makes the world believe that those who live under its light are untouchable and blessed. Yet the fire that gives warmth also burns in the same spotlight that creates gods can also destroy human beings who are fragile at heart. In this story, we witness three souls moving through that fire. Megyn Kelly, a woman who built her life on courage and sharp words. Perez Hilton, a man who built his empire on the secrets and scandals of others. And Blake Lively, an actress who never asked for conflict, yet was pulled into the storm simply because silence could not protect her. Blake Lively became the face of suffering. She carried the weight of humiliation. She never deserved her life. Her image, her dignity was turned into entertainment. And as the world consumed rumors, her heart bled quietly in a place where no camera could see. This is a cruelty of fame. It gives endlessly, but it also takes endlessly. It makes people cheer when a star shines bright, but it makes them whisper when the same star stumbles. The cheering is loud, yet the whispers are louder, because whispers are sharp like knives, and they do not stop when the lights turn off. Blake Lively never asked for whispers. She lived with grace. She lived with love. She lived with the dream of building a family away from the dark games of Hollywood. But gossip does not care about dreams. Gossip does not respect dignity. Gossip only feeds itself with suspicion, doubt, and scandal. And so even someone as graceful as Blake could not escape its claws. The world often forgets that celebrities are not made of stone behind the spotlight. There are beating hearts behind the smiles. There are silent tears behind the stage photographs. There are sleepless nights filled with fear and humiliation. And behind every headline, there is a human being who may never heal completely from the scars left behind. The world moved quickly when the storm began. People rushed to judge. Some defended Blake with passion and called her a victim of cruelty. Others doubted and whispered that silence always hides something. In that very moment, the truth no longer mattered. What mattered was the noise, and the noise consumed everything. This story reminds us that we as a society are addicted to noise. We scroll, we click, we share, we laugh, and we forget that the story belongs to someone who has to live with the consequences long after we have moved on. For us, it is a conversation. For them, it is life. For us, it is content. For them, it is suffering. Megyn Kelly saw this, and her outburst was not just about Perez Hilton. It was about the sickness of a culture that feeds on destruction. She lashed out because she could no longer stand silent. While lives were broken in the name of entertainment, her voice shook because she carried the weight of stories untold, of families torn apart, careers destroyed for the sake of views, clicks, and gossip. And for once, she let the armor fall and showed the raw pain of someone who had watched too much cruelty happen too often. Perez Hilton stood on the other side. He had lived as both the villain and the survivor. He had tasted power. He had tasted hate. He had lost everything. And yet, he had risen again. In his eyes, gossip was not the disease. It was a reflection of what people wanted. He said he did not create the hunger. He only served it. And that belief gave him strength to stand tall while the world debated his name once again. But Blake Lively stood in silence, and silence was the loudest sound of all, because in her silence, the public projected its own fears, its own suspicions, its own fantasies. She became a blank page on which the world wrote its cruelest assumptions. Her silence, which was once her shield, became her prison. The scars from this clash will never fully fade. They are not the kind of wounds that heal with time. They are invisible wounds carved into dignity, into reputation, into the very soul of a person. And that is the tragedy of fame. You can lose yourself not through your own mistakes, but through the hunger of others who never stop demanding pieces of you. The world will move on. It always does. Today, it is Megyn Kelly, Perez Hilton, and Blake Lively. Tomorrow, it will be another name, another story, another storm. People will scroll and click and argue again. New names will rise, new names will trend, new names will fall. But for those who live through the storm, the scars will remain. Forever, Megyn Kelly will always be remembered. For the night her armor cracked and her human heart spoke louder than her anchor's voice. Perez Hilton will always be remembered for standing unbroken in the fire, claiming victory in the very culture that once tried to destroy him. And Blake Lively will always be remembered for her silence, which became louder than words, for her suffering, which became the face of innocence caught in the machinery of gossip. Their clash is not about glamour. It is not about glitter. It is not even about scandal. It is about the raw reminder that fame is fragile and humanity is priceless. The audience must now ask themselves a question. Why do we demand the destruction of those we admire? Why do we cheer for beauty, talent, and grace, and then delight in watching it burn? Why do we forget that behind every story is a soul? Perhaps it is because the world feels powerless and gossip makes us feel strong. Perhaps it is because judging others is easier than healing ourselves. Perhaps it is because in the chaos of celebrity downfall, we find temporary escape from our own pain, but no reason can justify the cruelty of turning human suffering into entertainment. The story of Megyn Kelly, Perez Hilton, and Blake Lively is not just their story, it is our reflection. It is the mirror that shows us who we are as a society and what we have become in this age of endless content. We are the ones who decide what to click, what to share, what to celebrate, and what to destroy. We are not only witnesses to gossip, we are participants, and if we do not change the cycle, never end, the scars remain not just on them, but on us too. Because every time we feed the fire, we lose a little piece of our own humanity.